I left without saying goodbye. Back then, I was a lead engineer at a renewable energy startup. The work was intense. Tight deadlines, global clients, systems that couldn't afford to fail. And when something broke, I was the person they called. But to my family, I barely existed. We hadn't spoken since 2017. So when my phone lit up one quiet evening in November 2024, I froze when I saw the name. Aunt May. The only relative who still had my number. "Jasmine," she said softly, "your parents want you home for Christmas." I stood by the window of my Soho loft, staring at the lights across Manhattan. "Now?" I asked. "After all these years?" They said it's important. After we hung up, the silence pulled old memories back to the surface. Growing up, I was always the quiet one. The serious daughter. The kid building radios from scrap parts while everyone else talked at the dinner table. My younger sister Lena was the star of the family. Beauty pageants. Straight A's. Dad's favorite. At 14, a school counselor once told my parents, "Jasmine doesn't need more discipline. She needs attention." My father laughed. "She likes being alone," he said. But that wasn't true. Lena got ballet lessons. I got lectures. For her 18th birthday, she got a diamond necklace. I got a second-hand tablet without a charger. Christmas was the same every year. Lena's gifts were celebrated. Mine felt like afterthoughts. But this time was different. This time they were calling me back. And they had no idea the daughter they ignored now ran an international energy company with offices on 3 continents. I wasn't coming home as the forgotten girl anymore. Family gatherings had always felt like performances. Lena moved through them effortlessly, charming, confident, adored by everyone. I disappeared into the background. That changed the day I found coding. There was a flyer hanging crookedly on the guidance counselor's board. "Girls who code, room 108, Wednesdays after school." I walked in once out of curiosity. I never stopped going. For the first time in my life, something made sense. Not people. Systems. Logic. Rules that didn't change depending on who was prettier or louder. That tiny classroom became my escape. We built broken computers from spare parts. Shared tutorials. Stayed late fixing bugs together. I coded my first mobile app on an ancient desktop with a cracked monitor. One afternoon, our advisor, Miss Baines, pulled me aside. "You don't have to be loud to matter," she said. "You just have to build something they can't ignore." I never forgot that. By 18, I had my way out planned. Lena had already been accepted into an expensive marketing program in London, fully funded by my parents without hesitation. Then came Christmas dinner in 2008. Dad raised his wine glass toward her. "To Lena," he announced proudly. "Off to London to make her mark on the world." Everyone applauded. My mother smiled stiffly in my direction. "And Jasmine is considering some kind of tech career." My uncle laughed. "Well, there's always IT support. My office printers need help." The whole table laughed. Even my parents. But I didn't. Because by then I had already been accepted into one of the best computer science programs in New York on a full scholarship. Tuition. Housing. Living expenses. Everything covered. I packed my bags quietly and left for New York without saying goodbye. I worked night shifts at a noodle bar while studying full-time. I graduated at the top of my class and joined a climate tech company right after college. By 2021, I was leading product development on a $30 million smart grid project. The signing bonus alone was enough for a down payment on my apartment in Fort Greene. Exposed brick walls. Big windows. A tiny office corner where I spent too many nights working. It wasn't huge, but it was mine. A week before Christmas, I hosted a small housewarming party. Nothing fancy. Just friends, engineers, exhausted survivors of startup life. We sat on floor cushions eating dumplings straight from takeout boxes, laughing about failed servers and failed relationships. At one point, my friend Ava lifted her glass. "To Jasmine," she said. "The girl they ignored until she rewired her whole life." Everyone cheered. I smiled, but my mind was already somewhere else. The family I hadn't seen in nearly 7 years. A week later, I boarded a flight home. I wrapped thoughtful gifts in plain brown paper. No flashy bows. No trying to impress anyone. When I landed at Pearson International, I rented a car and drove through familiar streets that suddenly felt smaller than I remembered. The neighborhood looked worn down. Peeling paint. Sagging gutters. snow covering patches of dead grass. I parked in front of the house and sat there for a moment with my hands gripping the steering wheel. Then I walked up the path and rang the bell. Footsteps approached slowly. The door opened with a creak. My mother stared at me like she'd seen a ghost. "Jasmine," she whispered, "you came." My mother pulled me into a stiff, awkward hug. "You look successful," she said carefully. Inside the house smelled exactly the same. Lemon furniture polish, old dust, and the cinnamon potpourri bowl that had probably been sitting in the same place for 10 years. The living room was packed with relatives. The moment I walked in, conversations slowed. Then stopped. "Well, look who finally made time for the family," someone muttered. "Is that Kashmir?" another whispered. I glanced down at my coat and smiled faintly. Tailored trousers. Wool coat. Quiet confidence. Still invisible to them somehow. Then Lena appeared hand in hand with her fiancé. "Everyone, this is James," she announced brightly. "My future husband." She rested a hand on her stomach with a dramatic smile. "And yes," she added, "we're expecting." The room exploded with excitement. "Congratulations." "Cheers." Tears. I gave a polite nod. "Congratulations." Lena smirked at me. "So," she asked casually, "still doing that little tech thing?" "I am," I replied evenly. Of course she still thought that's all it was. The evening unfolded exactly the way I remembered family gatherings always did. Everyone playing their old roles. Aunt Teresa cornered me near the sad-looking cheese tray. "Lena's launching a lifestyle brand," she said proudly. "She has such vision." Then she tilted her head at me. "And you're still in computers?" "I develop energy software," I explained. "Oh." She blinked. "Like electricity bills?" "Something like that." "Sounds practical," she said, already losing interest. Later, Uncle Dave stopped me near the kitchen. "You know," he said, "the garage is hiring again. Not glamorous but steady work." I almost laughed. "Thanks," I said politely. "I'm doing okay." At dinner, they seated me at the far end of the table beside the swinging kitchen door. Meanwhile, Lena sat in the center like royalty. "This brand is going to change everything," she announced dramatically. "We just need some startup money." "How much?" Dad asked immediately. Lena didn't even hesitate. "About $250,000 to get through the first quarter." I nearly choked on my wine. $250,000 for an influencer business with no plan. "We'll figure it out," Mom said warmly, squeezing Lena's hand. "Family supports family." Of course they did. After dinner, Mom handed me a thin fleece blanket. "Guest room's full," she said. "You'll be in the den on the air mattress." "Perfect," I replied calmly. Christmas morning came with chaos and wrapping paper everywhere. Lena and James rushed downstairs like children. The pile of presents around them looked ridiculous. They opened my gifts first. Carefully chosen. Thoughtful. Elegant. Mom held up the cashmere scarf I bought her. "Oh my God, Jasmine." Dad examined the leather watch case I'd given him. Even Lena looked impressed by the designer baby bag I picked out. Then it was my turn. "Nothing." Mom gasped dramatically. "Oh no," she said. "We completely forgot your gifts." Lena burst out laughing. "Just like when we were kids," she teased. "Try not to cry this time." The room chuckled awkwardly. But I didn't feel sad. I didn't even feel angry anymore. I just felt finished. Completely finished. Lena leaned back against the couch. "So what exactly do you do in tech?" she asked. "Like app testing? Customer support?" James laughed softly beside her. I smiled. "Something like that." Mom clapped her hands quickly, trying to move things along. "Dinner will be ready soon." Then she added casually, "And Jasmine, remember, you're still in the den tonight." "Actually," I said quietly, reaching into my handbag, "I already gave myself a pretty good Christmas present this year." I pulled out a silver keychain and held it up. The metal caught the chandelier light. Dad frowned. "What's that?" "Keys," I answered. "To my new condo." The room went silent. Complete silence. Mom blinked. "You bought property?" "With my own money," I said calmly. Dad stared at me. "In New York." I nodded. My company recently licensed a software platform I developed to a major utility provider. They rolled it out nationwide. Lena's smile slowly faded. My bonus was decent. Mom looked confused. How decent? I took a sip of water. About 150,000 after taxes. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Lena looked at James. Dad stared at me like he was seeing me for the first time in his life. Mom finally whispered, "What kind of job gives bonuses like that?" I met her eyes calmly. "I told you," I said. "I'm a lead developer. I build software platforms for smart grids," I said. Energy infrastructure systems. Utilities, governments, Fortune 500 clients. The room went quiet in a different way now. Not dismissive. Calculating. Dad leaned forward like he was trying to adjust his understanding of me. "How long have you been making money like this?" "Since after graduation," I said. "Base salary has been 6 figures for years. Bonuses depend on contracts." That was when I felt it shift. Not warmth. Not pride. Recalibration. Mom stood up a little too quickly, switching into a tone that didn't match her earlier indifference. "Oh, sweetheart, why didn't you tell us? We're so proud of you." Dad turned immediately toward Lena, smiling like he was correcting a narrative. "Did you hear that? Global clients. Your sister's doing very important work." Lena's posture tightened. James leaned toward her and murmured something under his breath. Her smile didn't reach her eyes anymore. Mom moved closer to me, suddenly attentive. "So this condo," she said. "How big is it?" "2 bed, 2 bath. Fort Greene. A block from my office." Her face lit up. "We should visit. Family should stay close." I almost laughed. Family. After 7 years of silence. I set my glass down. "Actually," I said, standing, "I've got an early flight back to New York." Mom reached for my arm. "You just got here. Stay a few more days." Dad nodded quickly. "We haven't even had time to properly celebrate you." I went upstairs anyway and packed in silence. But I could hear them below, voices rising, overlapping faster now. Not celebration. Planning. When I came back down with my suitcase, they were waiting in the foyer. Smiles back in place. Carefully rebuilt. "Before you go," Dad said, stepping forward, "we wanted to talk about Lena's business launch." Lena brightened instantly like a switch had been flipped. "It's a sustainable lifestyle brand," she added. "Very current. Very scalable. You'd be an early investor." I looked at her. "How much?" He didn't hesitate. 200,000. Just seed capital. With your bonuses, it's really not a big deal." There was again. My life reduced to a funding source. I looked at all of them. My parents, who once told me there was no money, while paying for Lena's everything without hesitation. My sister, who used to laugh at my little tech job. Her fiancé, still carefully avoiding my eyes. "No," I said. The word landed hard. Mom's smile cracked. "What do you mean, no? I'm not giving you money." Dad stepped in immediately. "We're family." I nodded slowly. Where was that family when I was 17 working part-time while Lena got driving lessons and designer bags? Mom exhaled sharply. "That was different. We didn't have extra then." "You had extra for her," I said quietly. No one corrected me. Lena scoffed. "That's not fair. I had promise." Mom tried to soften it again, rushing to recover the narrative. "We just thought she needed more support at the time. A more practical path wasn't right for you." I picked up my bag. "I need to go." Lena's face changed first, hurt turning into anger. "You ungrateful brat," she snapped. "After everything this family has done for you?" I stopped at the door. "Done for me?" I turned slightly. "You fed me. You raised me. That's not a favor. That's the minimum." Silence tightened the air. "And even then," I added, "you made sure I always knew I was second choice." I walked out. They followed me onto the porch, voices spilling after me. "You'll regret this," Mom called out. I didn't turn around. "I won't," I said. And for the first time I meant it completely. By the time I reached the highway, my phone had already started vibrating. Calls. Messages. Voicemails stacking up. I pulled into a gas station, sat in my car and blocked every number. All of them. Back in Brooklyn, I stood on my Fort Greene balcony with a glass of wine, watching the skyline glow in quiet layers of light. Ava texted, "Heard what happened. Need me to fly up and handle someone?" I smiled. "Oh, I'm good. Honestly, This is the clearest I've ever felt. She replied with a laughing emoji. Your mom's going nuclear in the group chats. Let her, I typed. That night I slept deeply. No guilt. No noise. Just stillness. In the morning the messages came anyway. Cousins, aunts, relatives I hadn't spoken to in years. How could you do this to your family? Lena is struggling. You've changed. I blocked them without replying. All of them. Except Ava. She called that evening. Your mom's telling everyone you've gone rich and heartless, she said. I took a sip of coffee. Sounds like she finally noticed I exist. Pause. She says you've forgotten where you came from. I almost laughed. Funny, I said. They only remember where I came from when they need something. Ava's voice softened. You okay with all of this? I looked out at the city. Ava, I said gently, I stopped being part of that family a long time ago. I just didn't make it official. That night I met my friends at our usual wine bar in Fort Greene. Low lights. Soft jazz. Familiar faces. And for the first time I said everything out loud. No filtering. No protecting anyone's image. When I finished, Kendra raised her glass. Good riddance, she said. That kind of family dynamic eats people alive. Someone else asked quietly, do you miss them? I thought about it. Not the people. The idea. The version of things I kept hoping they were. Then I shook my head once. No, I said. And I finally believed it.no. I think I've been grieving a version of family that never really existed. Now I'm just closing the book. I raised my glass slightly. To chosen family, I said. The table echoed it back to me, glasses meeting in soft, easy clinks. For a moment it felt simple. Clink. Then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I glanced at it once and turned the screen face down without a second thought. 6 months later, summer settled over Brooklyn in a way that made everything feel slower, softer. I sat on my balcony with coffee warming my hands, watching the city move below, joggers weaving through sidewalks, dogs pulling their owners forward like they had somewhere important to be. It felt like I had finally stepped out of something I didn't realize I'd been trapped inside. A shadow I'd learned to live in. Ava still called every week. Not out of duty. Just presence. One afternoon she said, Lena had the baby. Oh. I replied. They named her Madison. Pause. That's nice, I said and meant it. I hoped that child would grow up without inheriting any of the weight that came before her. Last I heard, Lena and James were still in my parents' house. The brand was still launching soon, which apparently meant nothing had changed. Even the extended family had started to lose interest in the story. But my parents hadn't. They had reframed it into something else entirely. A performance they could replay at dinners and gatherings. Their version of events had me cast as the ungrateful daughter who abandoned everything despite everything they did. I stopped trying to correct it, because my life had moved too far beyond their narrative. A few months after that Christmas I met Ethan, a freelance designer at a cafe near my office. Calm energy. Easy laugh. The kind of person who understood silence without trying to fill it. More importantly, he understood boundaries. And what it meant to leave people who never really saw you clearly. He had done it too. Work kept rising with me. I was promoted to lead systems architect on a major AI security rollout. Bigger scope. Higher stakes. More trust. The raise mattered, sure. But what mattered more was autonomy. For the first time, I wasn't proving myself inside someone else's expectations. I was building systems that actually carried weight, and a team that listened when I spoke. It was everything I used to imagine, lying awake on a sagging futon in my childhood basement. Then about a month ago Lena found a way through anyway. A new number. Hey Jasmine, she said, voice too bright to be natural. We should reconnect. What do you need? Pause. Then she slipped into it. Well, Madison should really know her aunt. And things are a little tight right now. The house needs repairs and... I didn't let her finish. No. A sharper edge came through her voice immediately. You don't even know what I was going to ask. Yes, I do. Silence. I ended the call and blocked the number. Just like that. Now mornings look different. Coffee. Balcony. Ethan beside me, scrolling through design sketches or reading quietly. Peace isn't loud. It doesn't announce itself. It just stays. They still tried, through cousins, through old neighbors, through messages that somehow still found their way to me. My favorite was a voicemail from Aunt Rezi. Family is forever, Jasmine. I deleted it. Because I had already walked away from that definition. And I wasn't going back to it. Ethan and I started planning a trip to Kyoto. Language apps open on our phones. Shrine routes saved. Ramen spots bookmarked like little promises. Ava texted one morning. Your mom saw your post. Said it figures, you'd rather travel than help family. I stared at it for a second. Then replied. Good. Maybe now she finally understands I stopped being available. A few weeks later I got promoted again, head of engineering. Top-tier salary. Bigger responsibility. Real recognition. My boss raised a glass in a small office celebration. You earned this, he said. And for once that sentence didn't feel like permission. It felt like fact. My phone buzzed mid-toast. Ava again. Your mom thinks you're laundering money now. I actually laughed out loud. Let them rewrite it, I said quietly, setting the phone down. I'm living mine. And for anyone who's ever felt invisible inside their own story, don't wait to be rewritten. Step out.